Have you ever judged someone by their appearance only to realize you were completely wrong? The morning sun filtered through the tall glass windows of the luxurious downtown office building, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors. The air smelled faintly of lemon-scented cleaner, a testament to the hard work of the janitorial staff, who had been there since the crack of dawn. Among them was Marcus, a young black man in his late 20s, dressed in a simple uniform of navy blue. His hands moved with precision, wiping down surfaces and emptying trash bins, his face calm but his eyes sharp, observing everything around him. Marcus had been working as a janitor at the prestigious Hartman Enterprises for 6 months. To most, he was invisible, just another face in the background, someone to ignore or, worse, look down upon. But Marcus had a secret. He wasn't just a janitor. He was the son of Elijah Hartman, the billionaire owner of Hartman Enterprises. Marcus had chosen to work in the lowest position to understand the company from the ground up, a decision his father had supported, but warned him would come with challenges. That morning, Marcus was cleaning the executive floor when he heard the sharp click of high heels approaching. He turned to see Cindy Reynolds, the company's newly appointed CFO, striding toward him. Cindy was in her early 40s, with perfectly styled blonde hair and a designer suit that screamed power. She had a reputation for being ruthless, both in business and in her interactions with employees she deemed beneath her. Cindy stopped in front of Marcus, her eyes narrowing as she looked him up and down. "You missed a spot," she said coldly, pointing to a barely visible smudge on the glass door behind him. Marcus nodded politely and moved to clean it, but Cindy wasn't done. "You know," she continued, her voice dripping with disdain, "people like you will never amount to anything. You're just here to clean up after people who actually matter." Marcus paused, his jaw tightening slightly, but he said nothing. He had heard worse before. He finished cleaning the smudge and stepped aside, allowing Cindy to pass. She walked by without another word, her heels clicking arrogantly against the floor. As Marcus watched her go, he felt a familiar mix of frustration and determination. He had chosen this path to learn humility, but moments like these tested his resolve. Little did Cindy know, her words would come back to haunt her in the most unexpected way. The days that followed were no easier for Marcus. Cindy seemed to take a particular interest in making his life difficult. She would point out imaginary flaws in his work, make snide comments about his uniform, and even mock him in front of other employees. "Maybe if you worked harder," she said one day, loud enough for everyone to hear, "you wouldn't be stuck cleaning up after people like me." Marcus endured it all with quiet dignity. He reminded himself why he was there, to learn, to grow, and to prove that he could lead the company with empathy and understanding. But the constant belittlement was wearing him down. He began to question whether his father's plan was worth the emotional toll. One afternoon, Marcus was cleaning the break room when he overheard a conversation between Cindy and another executive. They were discussing a major contract with a rival company, one that could make or break Hartman Enterprises. Cindy was confident, almost arrogant about securing the deal. "They'll sign," she said with a smirk. "They don't have a choice." Marcus listened carefully, his mind racing. He knew the rival company well. His father had mentioned them in passing. They were known for their strict ethical standards and their refusal to work with companies that mistreated their employees. If Cindy's behavior was any indication, Hartman Enterprises was in trouble. That evening, Marcus called his father. "Dad," he said, his voice tense, "I think we have a problem." He explained what he had overheard and the way Cindy had been treating him and others. Elijah listened quietly, his expression growing darker with every word. "Marcus," Elijah said finally, "you've done well to endure this, but it's time to show them who you really are." The next morning, Marcus arrived at work as usual, but there was a new determination in his step. He knew what was coming, and he was ready. The day of the big meeting arrived. Cindy was in her element, dressed to impress and radiating confidence. She had prepared meticulously for this moment, and she was certain it would cement her place as the company's rising star. As the executives gathered in the boardroom, Marcus stood quietly in the corner, his janitor's uniform a stark contrast to the expensive suits around him. Cindy glanced at him and rolled her eyes. "What's he doing here?" she muttered to no one in particular. The door opened and Elijah Hartman walked in. The room fell silent as everyone stood to greet him. Cindy's eyes widened in surprise. She hadn't expected the CEO to attend the meeting. Elijah took his seat at the head of the table and gestured for everyone to sit. "Before we begin," he said, his voice calm but commanding, "I'd like to introduce someone." He turned to Marcus. "This is my son, Marcus Hartman. He's been working here as a janitor for the past 6 months to learn the business from the ground up." The room erupted in murmurs of shock. Cindy's face turned pale as she realized the gravity of her mistake. Marcus stepped forward, his presence suddenly commanding. "I've seen a lot during my time here," he said, his voice steady. "Some of it good, some of it not so good." He looked directly at Cindy, who shrank under his gaze. Elijah continued, "Because of Marcus's observations, we've decided to reevaluate our leadership and company culture. Effective immediately, Cindy Reynolds is no longer with the company." Cindy's mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked around the room, hoping for support, but found none. The executives avoided her gaze, their expressions a mix of shock and relief. As Cindy gathered her things and left the room, Marcus felt a surge of emotions. Relief, satisfaction, but also a deep sense of compassion. He knew Cindy's arrogance had been her downfall, but he also understood that everyone deserved a chance to learn and grow. The meeting continued, but the atmosphere had changed. Marcus took his place at the table, ready to lead with the humility and empathy he had learned during his time as a janitor. If you enjoyed this story of redemption and the power of humility, share it with someone who needs a reminder that everyone deserves respect. And don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring tales that teach us valuable life lessons.